And hopefully Michael and Jeanie Ryce will be joining us at noon Central. And in the meantime, we'll try and share with you some of the knowledge about and ways to improve our skill at using the tool of forgiveness, the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness, which is a completely inside job. And you can find out about that tool, get direct access to it for free, and a host of support information at whyagain.org. When you go to that page and click on the link that says Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, or the red and white bullseye, it takes you to a page where you can have access to a whole host of tools. You can download the 7-step worksheet process for free. You can download a whole host of audio files of shows like this one where people have called in and worked through worksheets and discussed how they work and why they work and how to apply them in different ways and to different issues in their lives. You can download the PowerPoint presentation by Bill Cosentino, which is 24 and a half minutes of information about how the process works, and links to other tools, other worksheets, other resources that are seemingly endless at this stage of the game, because Michael and Jeanie have been building this resource and compiling ideas about how to do a support group, how to maintain a support group, the pitfalls to look out for. They've put in links to other related work and resources, and there are the archives to this radio show that go back more than 8 years now. It began in 2011 in January. So we just keep building. We keep building the resources to try and support people in learning and using some of the most important, powerful, efficient, accessible tools that I've ever learned in all my years of living life and doing therapy. So I have gratitude and thanks to express to Susan Darnell for calling in yesterday and basically doing the radio show. So if somebody who knows this work about as well as Susan wants to call in and put their hand up and monopolize the show, please do so now. And I'll have another day off. Another day of, I think it was about 4 years ago when I first started saying to Susan Darnell, when she would give a summary of the work, okay, I can retire now, or okay, Dr. Ryce can retire now, because Susan has been exemplary in her commitment to learning the tools and applying them in her life. And she continues to step up and do her own work and share the results of it with people in her community in Wilmington, North Carolina, and on the radio show. And I have tremendous gratitude for that. So thanks again, Susan, for doing that yesterday. And if you didn't get a chance, you can listen to yesterday's show in the archives, because Susan was sharing quite a bit about her own process, and in the course of sharing about that, she was reviewing some really important concepts, like how when I make the commitment to do my work, I need to hold the willingness present even when things don't seem to be going so smoothly. It's my willingness to go through the negative energies that I've experienced and downloaded over the years and been avoiding looking at for years or hours or weeks or days or decades. It's my willingness to face them and keep my eyes open and take ownership of what I'm experiencing as those energies move out of me that allows me to keep that process going. every time that I say I don't want to face this, I don't want to look at that, I shut down the process that will actually lead me to integration and healing. It'll actually lead me to be able to unload what we call in this work the energies that don't belong in my system. And we keep trying to tell people that the energies that belong in our system are the energies of compassion, love, health, vitality, etc. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you press 1, I'll see a little question mark go up by the microphone and my switchboard near your name, and we'll have a conversation. And we welcome people to do that, because whenever anybody calls in and puts up a hand and joins the conversation, whether they're asking for help in working through a worksheet process or asking for help in getting any of our tools explained so that they can understand them better, or they just call in and say, how about you talk about this topic? This isn't clear to me. Whenever we get a call like that, it just really enriches the show. It improves the quality of the show. It improves the energy. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And one of the ways that happens, it happens synergistically. It's never, or at least it's not usually, a very direct line. And we had somebody call in not too long ago and ask about whether or not I was going to go down to the intensive that are going to happen this summer in Heartland. And when I said no, she said, I really want to see you. I have such gratitude, and the gratitude I have for you would come pouring out so intensely that you might not be able to stand it. That the physical affection I want to show to you is so intense that it might be overwhelming. And it just so happened that I was reading an Anthony DeMello book last night, and as I was reading his book, it's a synergistic thing. There's no direct line here. I can't tell you exactly what I read in his book, but I got this flood of the memory of the caller saying that to me about their intense gratitude and how they would want to just hug on me so hard that it might be overwhelming. And the thought that came to me was this flooded image about a new insight connected to what I've been told is an Einstein quote, where Einstein was quoted to have said, "Human beings are part of what is called by us the universe. We're part of the whole that we call the universe. And are looking at the universe as though we're just a part of it, us seeing ourselves as separate or separated from anyone else, is a kind of an optical delusion. And that optical delusion leads us to have a special affection for certain people and things closest to us. And that special affection we have for people and things closest to us is really the mechanism that creates a prison for us. Now, somebody might ask, well, how does a special affection for one person or a family member or a loved one create a prison for me? Well, I'm not sure exactly what the mechanism is, but I know that unless there was that special affection for certain people and things over others, I could never go to war. So if taken to the extreme, my negative judgment of others or my less than judgment of others is absolutely necessary for me to be able to do harm to another person. or have any rationalization for doing harm to another person. At the same time, if I was able to see the truth of what a lot of scientists and great spiritual traditions tell us, that we're all connected, that we're all part of this one thing that we call this whole, this universe, then it would not be possible for me to harm somebody else, because it would be like harming myself. So that if I saw things clearly, I wouldn't be able to hurt another person. And then the quote by Einstein, and I'm told it's from Einstein, goes on to say, the only way out of that prison that I create when I generate special affection for certain people and things closest to me, the only way out of that prison is to extend that affection to everyone and all of God's creation. So what happened to me last night when I was reading this book by Anthony DeMello was I got flooded with the memory of this person saying how grateful they were and how they wanted to express that, and it would be so overwhelming and intense. The thought that came to me was, we all need to learn to look at everyone around us with that same filter. Here is a being of brilliance and light. Here's an extension of the creative energy and form. Here's a part of the one divine mind that I swim, live, move, and have my being in, and I have such affection for this person that I want to just hug on them. And imagine how our lives would change if we were able to see everyone through that filter. Just breathe into that. How would my life change if I was able to see everyone, not what they did, but every person through that filter? So I'll just take a breath into that, and I'll click on a microphone since someone put their hand up. Area code 847, you're in the air.
Hey, Tim,
Is
it's
this
Mary.
Mary? Hello,
It is.
Mary. How are you?
I got to get on this conversation. Oh, no. Not the special relationship thing again. Oh.
You mean the specialness conversation?
Exactly. And I mean, I get it. There's scale, it's all in scale and all that kind of thing. And I understand it. I guess I just feel like there's, in the same way that, let's say there's a disaster somewhere and it's so far away, but I want to help, and that whole kind of thing. Like my eyes and ears only go so far, and I can't do everything everywhere in the world. That's why you can only do so much, or in your area or whatever. I feel like that's the same concept in a way with the special relationships. There's no way that I can get as close. I can only get close to so many people, and have a real relationship where that purpose is learning and growing, and you can put the love out there to everyone or offer it out, but I don't think it can ever be quite the same as the people that you're in such direct contact with, that they know you and you know them, and you're building this thing, because you just can't do that with people that you're nowhere near. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I do, and I think I would have to agree with you. And I would say that, take a breath.
I've taken a few today. I'm fine now.
Okay. So all this teaching is calling you to, calling me to, calling us to, is to hold that filter in place for whoever's in front of us, directly in front of us, right now, in any moment. even if they just stole $70,000 from you, even if they just did something that you thought was harmful to one of your dogs or your children or someone you love. It's like what I was about to say before you put your hand up, was that in the way of mastery, it calls us to asking to be shown how to view my brothers and sisters the way the Creator views them.
Mhm.
And the request there is to be able to see with total clarity and accuracy. Well, how could there be a problem if I'm seeing it accurately and clearly? That's obviously going to be a better result, right?
You would hope so. Yeah.
So we're not called.
Yes.
We're not called in this work to be the same as the one mind that connects us all. We're not called to be the same as that. We're called to realize that in direct connection with those around us, the filter, the view, the perspective, the reality, the realization, what Michael Ryce would call the actuality of the truth of that person is available to us. And if we're seeing anything other than that deep truth, connectedness, the beauty of the creative energy expressing in form, if I'm experiencing anything other than that, it's because of roadblocks, garbage, traumatic energies, false conclusions that I'm holding on to. Or a filter of specialness that I've created and I'm refusing to apply to the person directly in front of me. So for my money, it's a big enough challenge for me to just learn to do this more and more day to day with whoever I run into, whoever I'm interacting with, person to person in the moment. And if I master that, then I'll worry about whether or not I can hold that same level of affection for people on the other side of the planet that I've never met. But I'll take it one step at a time.
I suppose. I don't see how it's like that. Well, I guess I just don't see the prison, how it's such a prison, because if we're all one and you have you're learning from your relationships and they're deep, it's not just to that person. I mean, if we're all connected.
Well, what I think they're talking about when we talk about is it a prison for me? What I think they're talking about is the pain and fear and sadness that I generate and hold on to and blame on other people around me. I mean, just think about the pain and fear and sadness that happens around war.
Right.
Well, I can't have that unless I've got the programming that says we're right and we're the God's chosen ones and our country is better than the other country and we need to attack them so they don't get our cows and yeah. But the ancient definition for war from a movie, the movie was Arrival, and the linguist in the movie said, ask these people what the original definition of war was. And the original definition of war from this ancient culture was, I want more cows. That's what was meant by war. So,
awesome.
So if I'm not able to do harm to another person in order to get property, if I see them as every bit as valuable and worthwhile as me and my children and my father, my mother, my lover, then I can't do the anger business. I can't do the attacking business. And just think about all of the pain, the fear, and the sadness, the grief, the horrors that come from getting into a war.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I envision when they say it's a prison for me.
Okay.
that I'm creating all of my negative emotions.
Okay.
And those negative emotions become a prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Cool.
just calling us all. I was calling us all to think about. Just imagine how different your life would be if everybody you saw, you felt so loving and affectionate for them that you had to control yourself so you didn't jump on them and hug them. Imagine how much different your life would be. Imagine the energy that you would pour into your interactions with them. And how positive that energy would be, even when they're having a bad day or they're angry about something. Or that's all. This came to me in a flash.
Cool. All right, I will put some thought into that one.
Yeah, try and generate that. One of my favorite lines from the book The Mirror Theory was the student is asking the teacher, "What do I do about all my garbage history?" And the teacher said, "Well, to begin with, let's give it a name with more reverence than garbage history. Let's give your past a name that speaks more accurately of what it is or was." What would that be? Well, how about calling it the love of God in search of self? So everything I did in the past that wasn't perfect yet was just me testing things out, trying to find my way home, trying to get more clear about the realization of my true awareness. Of my true nature and the awareness of the true nature of those around me. So I used that. I used that for quite a while after I read that book, and I would walk around and I would see people and they would be crabby or they would be disheveled in their dress or they'd be homeless. And I would just say in my mind, there's the love of God in search of self. And just watch how it changed my energy to think that way. And then if I was, well tuned in and relaxed and breathing and asked to be shown, I would ask to be shown, so is it mine today to offer this person some money or ask them if they're hungry or if they need help with something? Or is it to just smile and send loving energy? And act from whatever guidance I got when I was asking to be shown what's mine to do in the face of this human being who is simply the love of God in search of self.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting for even to be treated that way by another person. I could see how that would be kind of a different kind of world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Michael Ryce.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Michael Ryce in his work calls us to do this, and Susan Darnell was talking about it yesterday, that before they do their breath sessions, they do a thing called a love exchange.
Right.
Which is just going inside myself and thinking the most loving thoughts I can and generate that loving energy and feel it in my heart space, and then imagine that I'm just pouring it out my eyes toward the other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the first time doing that. It was very intimidating to me. That one took some practice and some loosening up. We're not used to that, at least most people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And yet, what would you say your experience is of it today? Would you say that with whatever willingness you've been able to do that, the times you've been called upon to do it, that it was helpful or hurtful?
Well, I never found it hurtful. There are some people that I think I have a closer bond with because of it. We were both risking to do that, it seemed, and it was all good, and it felt wonderful, and yeah, I think it was definitely worthwhile.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it was outside your comfort zone,
Oh yes,
it yielded good benefits.
yes, yeah, definitely.
So that's the kind of thing we're suggesting that
Yeah,
all
the
of us
person in
can
front
do
of you.
more
Right,
often
I understand. Mm-hmm.
to whoever's
Mm-hmm.
in front of us.
Yeah, I guess when I hear you say, the special relation, it seems like it's it's something in me that says, ooh, you're not supposed to have close relationships. That it's taking away from something else. It just seems like, I look at it as a and I guess that's something I need to do some worksheets on, about how I'm looking at it as a weakness or a criticism of some sort that, oh, that's
Yes.
too special. You shouldn't have that.
Yes, that's right. And please try and hear it, because I've said this before. Take a breath or two. and literally what we're calling you to in this work, we're calling all of us to in this work, is to do more of that special relationship stuff everywhere in your life with every person. Generate that same level of appreciation and affection for everyone you interact with. So the only thing that makes it unhealthy is if I'm restricting it from anyone. If I'm doing it with everyone, it's the love of creation, it's the energy of creation that some would call is love, extending itself to everyone and everything. And that's highly recommended.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's the exclusive part of it that makes it unhealthy. It's not the intensity of it. It's not the affection of it. It's not the fun of it. It's not the health of it, the joy of it that makes it unhealthy. It's excluding someone from that energy that you're capable of generating and extending. It's that makes it unhealthy for you. Because every time I do that, every time I exclude somebody from my extending that loving energy, that appreciation energy, that deep compassion to them, I'm excluding some part of myself from feeling that. The only thing that would make me hold back from extending that to somebody is that I'm somehow judging them negatively. And what we know in this work is I'm never going to judge anybody else negatively unless I'm still judging some part of myself negatively for having done the same or similar thing.
Same.
So the injured, wounded, shameful part of my mind has to be there in order for me to withhold sending that loving energy to someone else. And I'm the one who heals first when I find a way to get in touch with my true nature as that energy of love, feel it fully through every part of my system, and then extend that to the person that moments before I thought wasn't worthy of that affection or that attention or that creative energy.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we'll see how much deeper this discussion goes into my little brain here, and their process just a little further. Always
All right.
good.
Well, I appreciate the call and the comments and all of your work, and I look forward to our next face-to-face encounter.
Awesome.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Okay. 563-999-3581. That's how Mary got on the call. We have just a host of people listening on the phone banks. We have nobody in the chat room right now, but we have plenty of time for a conversation. We've got 27 minutes. So press 1 and we'll be having a conversation. What, if anything, did any of this stir up for you? 563-999-3581. Press 1 and we'll have a conversation. I was just saying that that whole thing got sparked by my reading a book, but because somebody put their hand up, here's area code 610. Is this Susan?
Yep. Okay.
Oh,
the word was pulverize.
That was a groan. What was the word you were afraid you were going to pulverize me with your affection?
Yeah, but don't you remember? That's what I had said. You better watch out. You might get pulverized. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate that you remember that in that way and spread that out in such a way. I've been practicing by using my cat as a starter. You need a starter sometimes for the affection. And my cat, if I can warm up my heart and then look at someone, anybody who happens to cross my path, and call upon my cat, then I can transfer. There's a load. There is some energy that can be transferred. It's very artificial, but it's a fun thing to do. And so I've just been doing that. But I had a question, or I don't know what it is yet. It's on page 408 of The Way of Mastery. So I'm getting through the whole book for the third time, and it's like a new book every time. I loved Mary's question, and I have the same question: is how do you do that and spreading the affection? And of course, what comes to mind is someone who is very distasteful for me to think about. And so I use that person as my teacher. But The Way of Mastery says this. It says, always be very careful that you do not judge what is occurring, meaning, in this case, my negative feelings about a person that I'm trying to put my affection for my cat on. Do not judge what is occurring, for that is the fault that people fall into, saying, why did I call this to myself? This is a horrible experience. Why, oh, why did I want this? All of that is judgment and not gratitude. And so he goes on to say, I've been stopping right there by saying, how come I drew this to me? Here I am. How can I draw this? And they're saying that's a judgment and not gratitude. So not only are we invited to show affection, but if we're not showing affection, we're not to judge the lack of affection, but to notice it and be grateful for this, I guess, experience or teacher. Okay, I'm taking a big breath. Did you follow that?
Yeah, I think I did.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah,
so
and I think you said it accurately. I think you're conveying, what the book is trying to tell us is that whether I'm judging myself or someone else, I'm in error.
Yeah.
What the book tells us over and over and over again is love, this energy of creation, allows all things, accepts all things, embraces all things, and only through that process does it transcend all things.
Yes.
Right? The sun just shines, right? The sun doesn't say, I'm not going to shine on this bad person or that bad person. It just shines. So when I have a negative feeling in myself and my mind is creating images that wants me to believe those negative feelings are coming because of Larry over there, once I step into this level of understanding of the teaching, I can say, oh, look what just got stirred up in me, or look what I'm creating by the interpretation I'm putting on Larry, or what Larry did or didn't do, and how it's showing me that I have something less than love in my energy system. I want to be grateful for that revelation. You know what Guy Finley says? Lessons I need to learn ride into my life on the back of events that I don't want.
Right.
And so every time I have any kind of an upset, the most useful focus of my conscious awareness is inside me at the pain I'm feeling or the sadness or the fear or the judgment so that I can understand how I'm creating this pain in me, so that I can understand how I'm rejecting the flow of life in this moment.
God must have an awful lot of confidence in us to have set up things in such a way as right now in our global crises of various kinds, climate, political, refugee situation, must have a lot of confidence in us to be able to rise to the challenge of these things which we perceive as so scary and negative. I know scary is one of my favorite miserable feelings. So,
well said. It's one of my favorite miserable feelings. Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me, before you keep going and before you dig into that trench or that well and sit there in the bottom of that well,
go there.
like a little frog that sits in the bottom of the well, and we will have a really hard time explaining the vastness of the ocean to you if you're sitting in the bottom of your well. Let me just point out that you just humanized the Creator. Right? You just created a very intense anthropomorphic interpretation of the Creator.
Yes. I did.
And I'm not sure that's very useful, because if you took every human logical mind, every bit of intelligence in every human logical mind, and every pitfall, because they can't be separated, right? Every drama and insecurity in every human logical mind, and combined it all, I don't think you'd get anywhere near the mind power you would need to create a universe. So let's just breathe into that like you just did. Do that once or twice more and just release some of the attachment we've been creating over the years to the idea that we can understand God or have a personal relationship with God, or that he or she is on our side against the neighboring country that's a bunch of devil worshippers or heathens, or that our religion is the one true religion, and unless they're baptized in our religion, they're going to hell, but everybody in our little club is going to heaven. And let's just release the attachment we have to those kinds of conclusions and soften and breathe and open to observing that there's far more going on at any moment than what my mind can see, understand, or even dream of. And so anytime I say something like, God must have a tremendous amount of confidence in us because this is such an overwhelming task, I have generated that fear, which you say is one of your favorite horrible feelings, and right there my alarm's going off. So rather than pursue the logic and try and find some constant consolation or solace in the logic, let me just recognize, the alarm's gone off. Let's stop the bus, get all the passengers out, make sure there's not a fire going on. Let's not drive this bus off the bridge while it's on fire. Let's stop. Let's put down whatever I'm using to create the fear or the feeling of overwhelm, and restore myself to that calm, centered being in the flow of the moment, and knowing, what's that line that says, be still and know that I am? And let's watch for, what must have happened here was I must have engaged one of the more common traps of the egoic mind, which is I'm going to try and figure this out. I'm going to create a set of logical arguments that either say it's going to be okay because God has confidence in me, or it's not going to be okay because God has too much confidence in me and I can't live up to God's expectations, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And just breathe and put it all down and come back to an experience in the moment, which helps me realize, you know what? I don't even know how I got here. I don't know how my breath keeps moving. I don't know how the food I ate this morning is digesting. That's not my job. My job is to take conscious control of this one little spigot or spout of creative mind energy that I've been given dominion over. Right? My job isn't to restore peace around the planet. My job is to restore peace within my mind energy. My job is to return my awareness to my true nature. Michael Ryce would call it that total, perfect, conscious, active presence of love that I am a part of expressing in this moment. And Michael was talking about it the other day. That's one prong. Keep reminding myself of my true nature, breathing, meditating, focusing inside, marveling at the miracle of life expressing in, as, and through me. And then the other prong of the approach is when something unlike that comes up, when one of my favorite horrible emotions come up, I take full responsibility for creating it or having brought a pile of that energy with me into this moment, and I use the tools that I can find with whatever school of thought works best for me to dismantle it.
Can you
because
repeat?
It's all created through thought. Can I repeat what?
You said my job is to, and then I wrote down because I couldn't remember your words. My job is to curate my little plot of mind energy. But you said something much better than that, and I don't know if you can call it up again.
Well, it was something about kind of the images that have come to me over time are things like that there's this little spigot or nozzle of creative energy, which we call mind energy, which is just my thoughts. And it's always on. My thoughts are always creating. If I think sad thoughts, I generate the energy that I experience as a physical sensation of sadness in my body. If I think happy thoughts, if I think angry thoughts, I generate the energy which I then experience as a physical sensation of either sadness or anger. So I don't initiate that energy. I didn't create it. I don't know the source of it. I just know it's just always on in my mind. And I can see and I can read and I get taught in these wonderful spiritual traditions that it's a creative force. So what's mine to do is to choose, whenever I become aware of that, where I direct it. Do I direct it in the arena of sad thoughts, angry thoughts, vengeful thoughts, or do I direct it in the area of direct observation, peaceful, loving, respectful, compassionate thoughts? That's what's mine to do. I've been given dominion over where this nozzle of creative energy gets directed.
Right. Okay, that's good. Okay, good. Julie Haverstick and I worked on a worksheet yesterday, and she got, let's see if I can find it. She's intuitive, and she just stopped me dead in the track and said, I'm pulling up the notebook so I can get her words. She said, I stay in my head. This is not serving me at all. Trusting the intellect more than truth. And this goes to trying to fix. I mean, you're touching on every single thing we worked on yesterday in the worksheet. So here it is again today, popping right back up. Okay. Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. And it's not really a mystery that that's happening because this is all we're ever doing. Any of us, with slightly different words or slightly different patterns of thought, all of us are using trying to figure it out, or thoughts, or focusing on the past, or focusing on the future, which is all about thought, to distract us from the truth in the moment of the miracle of life expressing as us. And if I can just recognize when that happens and say, oh, silly me, let me get back to the truth, I come back to the deep realization in the moment that there's a miracle of life expressing as me that goes beyond thought each new heartbeat, and there's nothing for me to do but have gratitude for the creation that brought me to this moment. And then if I stay in that view, if I stay in that awareness with a direct observation and clear view, then the truth of life in the moment acts on me, and my actions derive from that. That's one of those ancient Aramaic definitions that are so useful to go back to. The ancient Aramaic definition that we get from Dale Allen Hoffman, we're told that the ancient definition for faith was acting from the rooted center of my being. That's stepping into the direct awareness that I am, this I am that I have dominion over, is this energy of creation expressing in human form that gives me the ability to have awareness of anyone or anything. And if I step into that and then just ask, okay, what's mine to do here, or let the truth of life act on me, then my actions are derived from that energy which comes from the rooted center of my being. And there can't be any mistakes.
Mm. Mm.
So the first act always in each new present moment is to be aware of my true nature as love, and then let the truth of life and events around me act on me. And I am just this, this reflexive flow in the circle of life. And I'm a conduit for more of loving energy expressing. And there's nothing to figure out. I don't have to figure out what's the most loving thing to do here. I just need to stay aware of my true nature and the true nature of the beings of brilliance and light around me, and then that will act on me. And my actions will come as a flow of the extension of that creative energy. So many of us talk about it on shows like this where I guess it was Ruka talking through me, or I guess I was just in the flow, or I don't even remember what I just said there. That's because the me that we think about is Tim having these characteristics or this height or weight or years on the planet gets out of the way.
Yeah.
And life expresses directly through me. Life, love, the creative energy, Ruka, whatever you want to call it, the names are irrelevant.
Yeah. The internet is a huge temptation and challenge to this, because the internet widens our sense of what we think we're aware of, so that we've got our arms around the planet instead of around my study where I'm sitting, or around where the few people are that I might be talking to. So we're being invited to just, of course, the internet is very handy and everything, but it is a temptation to pull us into overwhelm all the time. At least I should speak for myself. Knowing so much of what's going on makes or invites me to want to handle more things than are really in my domain. And when you say go back, first be aware of my true nature as love, right back into the heart, right back into the soul, right back into now. It's good to be able to pull in that way. It's not a contraction. It's a relief, that's all. And then the Way of Mastery, it says the same thing. My eyes fell on this little passage on page 409. The power to see that in every moment of birth and death, of comings and goings, that nothing prevents you from the deep peace and joy of choosing to love, for love is not conditioned by the conditions of the world. There you go. That's the internet thing. Love is not conditioned by the conditions of the world. I want to get that.
So did you say you were just reading from 409?
Yeah, page 409 in the Way of Mastery.
What's the first line of your page 409?
Oh, why did I want this? It's part of a line,
so what
but the paragraph, it's the third one. In the end, comma, yeah. In the end, there can be, yeah.
So in the end, the body is unreal.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we don't want people to get into arguments about this. We just want people to soften and let the concept in. It goes on to say, at least as you experience it or perceive it to be. So
I think our editions might be different.
No, well, maybe they are. But it says, in the third paragraph down, it says, in the end, the body is unreal. Do you have that?
No, it
Beloved
says, in
friends,
the end,
the world is unreal.
No, it says, in the end, can there be a more powerful experience to call to yourself than that, not the crucifixion with nails in your wrists, but rather the power to see that in every moment of birth and death, blah, blah. So it is different. Mine's a different book, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know there were
you're reading the wrong book.
Of this. What?
I'm just teasing. I have no idea.
Oh.
But at the top of the book, it's of 409. It says, "Oh, why did I want this?"
Yeah.
Right. All of that judgment and not gratitude.
Yeah.
Right. And then the next one says, "I learned at the crucifixion," and the next one is, "In the end, there can be."
Can there be a more powerful experience to call to yourself than that?
All right, so you're reading what I would call the second paragraph on the page. I was reading the third one. Beloved friends, the world is unreal. In the end, the body is unreal, at least as you perceive it to be. For the body cannot limit you in any way. You already extend so far beyond it that it seems unimaginable and completely unbelievable. So the issue is this. As Michael Ryce calls us to look at from the Way of Mastery, from the Course in Miracles, the lesson, what is the world? There's the world that the Creator created, and there's the world that we create with our perception in the pictures that our minds create.
Yeah.
And these are very, very different. Because the pictures my mind creates, here's an example right here. You're saying, "Oh, I'm on the third paragraph," and I'm saying, "No, you're not. You're on the second paragraph," and I'm blah blah blah. I mean, we're so different in the images we create in our minds, even when we're standing in the same room looking at the same events. So each of us creates a world in our mind of perception that's dramatically and radically different from the world the Creator created. And we know that because there are so many energies that our senses don't even track, and then we have just the tiniest percentage of whatever energies are registering in our senses that actually gets registered in our minds, and it goes on and on and on. So how do we navigate through that? Well, these teachings tell us, pay attention to your feeling. That book, Jesus, an Autobiography, said it very directly, and I quoted it in one of our shows. My emotional energy system is my guidance system. And I can know with certainty that when I'm calm, when I'm feeling centered, when I'm feeling compassion, when I'm feeling loving, I'm headed in the right direction. And when I'm feeling any of those things I would call negative emotions, I'm headed in the wrong direction. My thoughts are in error. And because I've been given dominion over where I direct the energy of my thoughts, that creative force that we were talking about before, I can change my experience of life in each new present moment by shifting the focus of my conscious awareness. Guy Finley says it poetically, and he says, "As goes my attention, so comes my experience." I say it in the more verbose way. You have the infinite capacity to choose the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment. And it's the choice of the focus of your conscious awareness in each new present moment that actually, literally creates your experience of life in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't like what you're experiencing, take a breath and shift the focus of your conscious awareness. Change your thoughts, and it will change your experience of life, even if the outside events haven't budged.
Mm.
And we know this is true. We see it, the bless his heart, Pierre Pradervan has been corresponding with a death row inmate for quite a bit of time, and Roger McGowan has become one of Pierre Pradervan's favorite spiritual teachers.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in one of the most abusive places on our planet that humans have created for other humans.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so Roger McGowan chooses to focus his attention on loving thoughts and spiritual truths and apply them in his life and create a different experience of life than most of us would have if we were subjected to the kinds of abuse that he's subjected to day in and day out.
Yeah. Is he out now?
I think he's still in, but he's not on death row. I think he's still in prison, but not on death row.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
But I wouldn't swear to that. I would have to do some research on that.
Mm. Well, thank you, Tim. It's good to be reminded of the basic stuff over and over and over and over.
Well, you're very welcome and deserving, and thank you for the call. I have somebody else with a hand up, so just hold on a minute,
yeah,
Susan. Maybe they have a question for you. Maybe they have a question for me. Area code 773, you're in the air.
So this is an interesting conversation because I'm in a really toxic place where people bully consistently and gaslight, and it's really brought me down to a level that is almost, I call it almost crazy. I mean, the feeling is just very, very negative, and I'm wondering what you think about that.
Okay, well, let me just ask you to give us a name, even if it's made up. Just give us a first name and where you're calling from.
Ann from Chicago.
Okay, so Ann from Chicago. There's a host of good stuff to say about this. Currently, we're right at the point where we would transition from our first hour to our second hour. So I want to encourage you to hold on. And if you have you listened to our show much before?
No, this is why I just tuned in, and I think I'm meant to.
So, Ann, what we teach in this work are some very practical tools that I hope you will find and use. They're absolutely free. They're available on the website at whyagain.org. And when you go to that website, you either click on the link in the upper left-hand corner that says Start Here or the red and white bullseye, and that'll take you to a page where you can download Chapter 24 of Dr. Rice's book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? You can download absolutely free the 7-step worksheet process. You don't even have to get your name put on a mailing list. And the 7-step worksheet process is one of the places to begin. It's the ancient Aramaic tool of forgiveness, which has to do with removing the energies of anger and fear and sadness and hurt and guilt and shame from my system that my mind tells me are being caused by the bullies at work or the person across the street or the war in Syria, etc. And so it's a very practical set of tools, and we have 5 days a week, 1 hour a day for the last 8 years we've been doing this show, and the archives of that are available. And if you go to that web page where you find the worksheet, there are more than a dozen audio files of shows just like this one where people call in and they get stepped through the worksheet process. So there are tutorials there. And as I said, we're just about to make the transition. I have a meeting to go to, but Dr. Michael Ryce and his wife, Jeanie, will be on, and they'll be happy to support you in answering more questions about that. So please hold on. We're going to see if we can make a transition here. Jeanie, are you available, or is it Michelle today?
I'm still on too, Tim. And Ann.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Ann is Susan. Susan, this is Ann.
Hello,
Area code
Ann.
248.
Hi.
Oh, Tim, thank you. You turned on my microphone. This is Michelle.
Are you hosting today, Michelle?
I am. Would you like me to do an intro or?
Well, what I want to do is make a smooth enough transition so Ann feels like she's got some connection. Ann just called in right here at the end. She was hearing what we're talking about with Susan Bingham, and she's got a dilemma, and she's brand new to the work. So I'll sign off so Michael can come on. Ann, thank you so much for calling. Please feel free to check out our website at mindshifters-academy.org and thewhyagain.org, and I look forward to hearing how your call goes today. Thanks, Michelle.
All right.
Tim, if you want to just stay on, somehow I got in here with you on. Had to dial a couple times, but we're good.
Sweet. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, young lady. How are you?
Good. So,
Awesome.
well, then would you just want to continue with Ann then here?
We've got a caller, Ann. I did not hear the earlier part of your call. I just was able to get in the last few seconds, but delighted to have you on. How can we support you? What's happening in your world?
Well, I'm in a place where I've been bullied for 9 months and a lot of confusion.
Ouch.
And yeah, well, it's interesting, and it's a very toxic environment, and I feel now that I'm being blamed for the toxicity, which does have some validity, but it really did not come from me because this is a pattern in the place that's happened. You know, they keep losing people and things like that. And I'm just concerned. I'm personally thinking I'm just concerned about staying, and am wondering if I could get some tools or some support to positively transition out.
We have both for you.
Yay.
We have both tools, and we're here with support. So we're delighted to hear your voice. What part of the
Thank
country
you.
are you in?
Chicago.
Ah, okay. Cool. Well, you're not far from Dr. Tim, so he's got a couple
Yay.
of support groups and a Thursday night video support group, and all the support you can get, we'll be happy to give you. So the starting point would be, of course, we can always look at the external circumstance, and there's an old thing called the geographic cure, which when people take the geographic cure, I kind of have a tongue-in-cheek line that I use oftentimes is how many have noticed that you get on the plane to get away from those people to go to the other side of the country, and when you arrive at the airport on the other end, the person who picks you up finishes the sentence and the person dropped you off started. You know, it's like, how do they know what to say to you? What's going on here? So the first order of business with this work is to recognize that we're creators, that we create what happens in our lives, not necessarily and most often not consciously. And so to look at the part of us that's responsible, the part that plays in. Not that we are in any way, shape, or form responsible for the abhorrent behavior of other people. Nobody is ever responsible for what another does. Sometimes people will take this work and try to turn it around and say, well, you heard Michael Ryce. He said you're responsible for what shows up in your life. Well, I may be responsible for an abusive person showing up in my life. In other words, there's a part of me that calls forward that abuse, but I'm not responsible for this person being an abuser. That's their responsibility and their work to do. So when you say you're confused about it, the first order of business is to recognize that I'm confused because there's confusion in my mind. I'm not confused because of it, but just because there's confusion. And so to gather some tools with which to clear out the confusion, to get to clarity in mind, I would offer would probably be the first order of business. And that tool as we offer it, in the first century Aramaic language was called forgiveness. Now, we live in a culture that's taught us a lie about forgiveness. The culture's taught us that, of course, I'm in pain because you did something terrible, but it's okay. I'll forgive you. I'll let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. Our offering is that has nothing whatsoever to do with forgiveness. That's a Greek act of pardoning. I let you off the hook. Okay, your behavior was terrible, and I can let you off the hook. But once I do that, if I choose to do that, and that's obviously an option, pardoning, then the forgiveness work is I go inside myself. I find the part of me that plays in, the part of me that holds pain or trauma or confusion, and I heal that part of me. I remove that confusion. I remove the fear. I remove whatever it is that's going on. So the first order of business would be the forgiveness process. And that tool is quite different than what the world would expect. Have you had any exposure to the forgiveness tool that we teach?
No. Interesting.
Okay. So let's just pick we'll do a miniature forgiveness process around what's happening. And, I don't want you to reveal private things about what's going on, but give me the essence of the quote-unquote facts of the case. If a camera were to be stepping back, taking a picture, what would a camera have looked at in the scenario that you're labeling as causing confusion?
Continual gaslighting at work,
okay.
And felt to be like an outsider, and toxic competitiveness.
Okay,
it's really odd. Yeah.
Okay, let's pick the one of feeling like an outsider. So
yes.
I feel like an outsider in that circumstance. And so what forgiveness would look like, and just kind of a mini explanation, and there are videos and audios we can send you to get a more complete picture. But just in a nutshell, what we've discovered with this work is that, one, our culture has told us a lie. It's told us we have a set of peepholes called eyes. We look out into the world and we see what's happening out there. Well, the truth is the eye is a one-way valve. Information comes in. You can't see anything through your eyes. It's just not possible. It's absolutely, totally, completely impossible to see anything through your eyes. Lie number one of the culture. What happens when information comes in through the eyes or any of the other senses is that information sets in motion the core of perception in me, and perception is a construct of the mind. So when I look out and I say, gee, I feel like an outsider because they're always picking on me, what I'm really saying is there's a part of me that has the brain cells for being picked on and being an outsider. And so when this certain event happens, my eyes perceive, my ears have energies hit them we call words, and my mind says I'm an outsider. That's a perceptual construct of my mind. Now, the perceptual construct may be accurate, and it may not be accurate. If there's pain attached, then that construct of my mind is probably not accurate. And so what I want to do is I want to collapse that construct in my mind and get to the root of it. And if there's any kind of aberrant energy at the root of that perception, I want to dissolve it so I can clean up that part of my mind. So that's does that make sense so far?
So far.
It's a big, I'm going to give you a big download of information, and you may have to listen to it a few times. I've got to admit that it took me 35 years plus of working full time with the first century Aramaic to understand what I'm about to explain to you. So, I don't expect everybody to get it the first time, but we'll just run through it. And of course, when we're complete with the show, the archives are there if you want to listen to it again and get a deeper look, or as I say, look at some of the resources to fully understand. So I have a construct of I'm an outsider. There's pain attached to that construct. So forgiveness looks like I want to remove my pain, and I want to remove this perceptual construct, or I want to at least collapse this perceptual construct about being an outsider. Now, we'll go to a totally different piece of information, and we'll link those two. There's some interesting Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells fire, that is, there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness, our perceptual construct, is 9 bits. Little tiny, tiny fragment of what's moving within us shows up in our perceptual awareness. And the thing that recruits the content that becomes our perception and creates our feelings is, interestingly enough, our goals. You'll notice that, unless you're just a generally miserable person, which I don't get from what you're saying in your voice that you are, but unless that's your lot in life, you'll notice that you're generally pretty happy with most everybody, unless there's something you want them to do that they're not doing, unless you have a goal for them that they're not fulfilling. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yes.
I'm happy with my brother, but gee, when he took my ice cream cone when I turned around, I wasn't very happy. I liked that person at work until they stole my lunch, whatever. Until someone's going against the goal we hold for them, the mind tends to be in a pretty balanced state. But when hostility or fear comes into play, it's always because I have a goal that calls content in me based on that hostility or fear, or in this case, confusion, that calls that into play. And so if you look at, say, the particular circumstances, I go into work and this happens, and I end up feeling like an outsider.
Pische, P-I-S-C-H-E-A.
Oh, Michelle, can you mute yourself?
French Canadian. It's my husband's name.
Michelle,
Oh, yes.
Can you mute yourself?
Yeah.
Can you mute yourself? You come across the conversation. Okay.
Love it.
So in that particular bird's eye scenario, if you were to say to yourself, when I was feeling like that outsider, if they had only done what would the goal and the fulfilling of that goal be in order for you to feel good about being in that circumstance? So what would the goal be in that situation that you have for them?
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I'd have to think about that, but that's very interesting.
Okay. Well, let's think about it together. So I'm sitting at work and I'm really feeling this outsider kind of thing, and I turn to the person who's involved and I say, you could have just said, oh, why don't we include Ann in our conversation? And then things would have been cool. So the goal would be for them to have included you in the conversation.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
So would that be a goal then? Would that be a real
Yes.
scenario? Okay,
yes.
Cool. So now we're going to hook in another piece of information, and this is kind of the mind boggler that is the core of actual forgiveness as it comes out of the first century Aramaic. And that is, in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag, and it literally translates to cancel. And they had the understanding that it was goals that drove perception, and when pained perception came forward, it was because I held the goal that recruited that particular pain into activity. And when I cancel that goal, what happens is that pained perception collapses in on itself. Now, you probably, as many people did, saw or remember seeing the image of 9/11 when a plane hit the towers and then the tower collapsed on its own footprint. Just free fall speed just dropped right into its own footprint. When you cancel a goal, that's what happens with pained perception. It collapses into its own footprint. And when it does, it gives you access to the pain that's at the root of that perception. And when you can bring forward that pain in the context of active present love, then what happens is that pain, which we usually keep hidden from ourselves, starts to dissolve and disappear. And I'm freed from that situation. Now, the result of that might look like I'm sitting in the office and, the exact scenario is running by us before. I'm not including the conversation at all. And I might sit there, and instead of having attention on my pain perception, I might sit there and say, God, am I ever glad they're not including me in the conversation? I had this text I needed to write to my mom anyway.
Oh.
I'm going to have a totally different construct in my mind then. God, they're leaving me out of the conversation. What's wrong with me, or what's wrong with them, or why can't they just? And now I free myself from that. Now, I can still hold the goal to be included in the conversation, but I don't do it out of pain. I say, hey, guys, I have some ideas on that. How about if you include me? And with that kind of energy, I'll have a much better chance of being included in that situation than I will if there's a part of me that's still pained about it. And usually, when people cancel a goal, they usually drop back into some old pain perception that matches the circumstance of today, and they get to clean that up. So if you imagine yourself, once again, you're in that situation, you're not being included, you're feeling left out and maybe abandoned or what have you, if you just said to yourself, and I'm going to ask you to imagine yourself really at work in that circumstance, and then say to yourself, I cancel my need for them to include me in the conversation.
Okay.
So just go ahead. You imagine you're there, and go ahead and cancel that goal. I cancel the goal to be included in the conversation.
Okay.
Okay. And what happens?
Feel a little lighter.
Okay, good. Anything going on with your thoughts?
I don't care as much about trying to insert myself in something that maybe would be inauthentic.
Perfect. That's called forgiveness.
Oh.
The most common, I've been doing this for over 40 years with people, and it always, oftentimes, and that's why I was probing, and maybe there's something that, energetically we start to move things, and sometimes it becomes a cognitive memory. Oftentimes, one will have a memory of, oh yeah, I remember when I was 3 and my brother had ice cream and I didn't get any. I felt really left out. And when I process that, the end result is, and the most common feedback that I've gotten over the last 40 years from people when they do this forgiveness process is, God, it was really silly for me to be that upset about that situation. It really didn't mean that much. And that's exactly what you just shared is, I don't really care about it. It's not that big a deal. But it's a big deal while the unresolved pain is there. Now, sometimes when you go into processing that root pain, it's a cognitive experience. You actually have the memory. And sometimes you just process the energy, but you get the result, and you just got the result, so we know you did the process because you're saying to yourself, really isn't that big a deal. So you just processed a chunk of unconscious memory that contributed to the pained experience of being left out. That's how forgiveness works. Now, there's another step to the process as well, and that is that once I cancel the goal and collapse a perception, let myself take a breath, there's what in the ancient Aramaic, a man named Yeshua 2,000 years ago taught. There's a feminine elemental force in us, a power in us that has the ability to process things on a much deeper level than we can cognitively or energetically. That force in the ancient Aramaic was called Rukukucha. Translated today, the Greek mistranslation of those words is the Holy Spirit. There's nothing there about a disembodied spirit being. It speaks of a literal feminine elemental force in us that when we invite it into activity, undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. So how about going to that next step? So you've canceled the goal to be included, and you're seeing that, gee, it's really not that important. I really don't need to insert myself. And then just, again, internally, just invite whatever name, if you've got a name for that. Maybe you've got a relationship with the Holy Spirit or higher power or whatever term you would use. Just invite that power, whatever you might call it, to go to work in you and process the next level of that energy. And just see what happens.
Well, you're right that, looking back, it's not that big a deal. Like what I am angry and hurt about is not that relevant if you process it that way, or not that exciting.
So when you say what I'm angry and hurt about is not that relevant, tell us more.
If I don't have the goal, and if I rely on the higher power, I know that what is supposed to happen will happen, and I don't need to worry about forcing things.
Okay.
And I can let it go.
That's going to change your life.
Yeah, that will actually. Oh my gosh.
How cool is that?
I was meant to listen to this. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It's so simple. There's a great line. One of the things, texts I work with a lot is called the Course in Miracles. And there's a line in the Course that says, it is so simple, it cannot fail but to be completely understood. Rejected, yes, but not ambiguous. And if you failed to do it, it's because you felt like the cost was too big. And that is, no, I'm not going to let go of this goal. But here's the beauty of it. Once you recognize there's a particular goal driving pain perception, you cancel it. Once you're finished with it, you go back and reset the goal. It's not that there's a problem with the goal in any way, shape, or form. It's just that the goal recruits content based in hostility or fear. And what you want to do, first order business in your whole life, is clean up any capacity for any form of hostility or fear, so you live a life that's free of hostility or fear, no matter what anybody does. Because what happens is authorities purposely instill hostility and fear in us to control us. It's part of the game. And so when I free myself of that, I let myself out of that game.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yes. So then the other one where, let's move to another aspect of the circumstance you mentioned. I'm being gaslighted. And for anybody who doesn't know what the term gaslighting means, there's an interesting film called Gaslight. Or is it Gaslighted? No, Gaslighting. No, it's just Gaslight.
Gaslight.
I think it's a 50s film. But basically, this guy brings this girl into a relationship, and basically over time, he very insidiously pretty much tells her that everything she thinks is in error, and that he knows the truth, and that she should be listening to him because he'll guide her properly, and has her totally and completely set aside all of her own wisdom, wit, and intelligence. Fortunately, she wakes up and goes beyond that. So if people are gaslighting, they're basically lying pretty much all the time. So so that would go into another forgiveness process of a goal for people to tell the truth. And and there might be many goals there. If you've got a pen and paper, you might just write down a few and then tap into the wake-up sheet and do some wake-up sheets around this particular issue. But the kind of goals that are would be related to something like gaslighting would be the goal for people to tell you the truth, the goal for people to honor your intelligence, the goal for people to support you, the goal for people to have integrity, the goal for people to honor my integrity. So they'd be some of the goals involved in cleaning up a mind that's been gaslighted of the part it plays in being gaslighted. Because, again, nothing happens in our world unless we're at some level taking part in it. And so instead of keeping focused in the outer world, that is perception that we think is out there, The truth is, our perception is a dream. It's something produced by our own mind that we superimpose on what's actually going out there. And when we collapse it, all of a sudden a whole different world starts to show up. And so in a situation like being gaslighted, there would be some of the goals. There would be others as well, but they'd be some of the goals you might want to work on canceling and collapsing. And basically there's a worksheet called the reality management sheet or wake up sheet. And if you go to our website, which is www.whyagain.org, up at the very top of the page, like the tippy top of the page on the left-hand corner, you'll see the word Start Here. Click the Start Here button, and it'll walk you through. One of the things it'll give you is a copy of the worksheet. So you can click on that, and there's a 7-step process that details, we've done a kind of a mini forgiveness process so you get a taste of it, but there's a more expanded process, more detailed, that is there. And then there are at least, I think 17 or 18 radio shows now where either Dr. Tim or myself or Jeanie has walked somebody through the whole forgiveness process step by step. So you've got instructions for the whole thing. And then there are video links as well to show you the what, the why, and the how of that process. So I invite you to pull the worksheet off the website, print it off, and there are a number of different wake-up sheets. In other words, there are simpler forms, and then there are more complex forms, and many in between. And then the 7-step one that's on at that link I'm telling you about, that we usually start people off with. And so if you take those and put them to work, and then as you do, I'm sure more questions will develop, and we'll be here to support you having those questions answered and working through it. Absolutely honored and delighted.
Amazing. I'm really surprised that it's so effective in just a short amount of time.
45 seconds. That's all it takes.
You're kidding. Oh my gosh.
No. I've seen people on the verge of suicide. 5 minutes later saying, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't do it. Now I see what I've been doing to myself." I've had people who've shared with me, I'm thinking about one particular situation where a woman had a man who had a knife at her throat, was in the process of literally raping her, and went through that, went back to that state of connected love, and the man broke into tears, got up off her, and ran out of her apartment.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I could tell you story after story after story after story of people who, when they get to the point where they're ready to process on that level, things just move in the most amazing ways. And in some other cases, I've seen it, when they asked the originator of this forgiveness tool 2,000 years ago, how many of these darn worksheets do we have to do? How many times, he said, Paul or Peter says to Yeshua, how many times should I forgive my brothers? 7 times? Is that enough? And in Aramaic, Yeshua responds, no, 77 times 70. Sometimes these things are ancient genetic pain patterns that take significant work to undo. And I'm thinking right now about a gentleman who had been doing this work for about 5 years. He was discharged from the military with disabilities, and he had tumors in his spine, and they'd operated on his spine. And about 2 years later, the tumors came back. They decided they couldn't operate this time. They put him on an operating table, and they hooked both ends of some nerves up to electrodes and electrocuted these nerves to try to stop the pain from these tumors impinging on his ability to walk. He came to Heartland in a wheelchair. And it was about 6 weeks in. Now, it would take him, and if you go to that link that I told you about, you'll see a testimonial by Michael Coughlin. Listen to it. He'll tell you all about it. He came to Heartland. He spent about 6 weeks. This is about the third year of his being involved with the work. So he's not a newbie at it. He's dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, it takes him literally a minute to a minute and a half to walk from one side of our teaching center to the other using a walker. About the 6th week, we went into a still point session. And still point is a form of breathing that we teach for going into high-speed mass processing of those energetic patterns that cause pain in us. And Michael, who, if you knew him, you don't get much quiet time around Michael. He's always got something to say. But after that session, we didn't hear a word from him for 4 days. He was so tapped into that place of serenity and connectedness that he literally had nothing to say. And the next day, he was running up and down the hills at Heartland. Running, jogging. And, you know, they call the Ozarks the Ozark Mountains. They're not really mountains. It's the Ozark Hills. It was actually originally a plateau that weathered down to these hills. But we got some pretty significant hills. And so there was actually a woman who went back to the airport at the same time as he did, and the next day called me and asked me if I paid Michael to come to this intensive and fake healing because she saw him carry his wheelchair onto the plane, the wheelchair that he came in. It's like, well, no, I'm not exactly, you know, we travel and teach and we do our work free. No, I don't have the money to pay anybody to pretend they got healing. But they're the kind of things that I see happen as a result of people who pick up the tools and put them to work. So I'm delighted that you're receptive and open and ready to go for it. And if you go to that link, it will tap you into some videos. There's one particular video you might want to watch, and it goes into an in-depth explanation as to why and how what we just did works. It was actually done by a fellow who came to our teacher's training class 3 or 4 years ago, and he was a corporate trainer and an expert at doing PowerPoint. So he and I spent about a year going back and forth and developed a PowerPoint. And if you look at our video link, if you look on the website on the right-hand side, you'll see our YouTube channel. If you click there and just go down through the list and look for the PowerPoint and click on that, it's, I think, 22 or 23 minutes. It took us about a year to put that together, and it's exactly how and why what you just did works. And it gives you a really detailed, complete explanation. I mean, literally, what took me 35 years to learn was there in that 22 minutes, and you just got the 2-minute tutorial. So, thanks for being so receptive and ready. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. I thank you greatly. This has been really enlightening.
Absolutely honored and delighted. Any other questions for you? Anything else we can support you with?
No, I think I'm going to go to your website and see what I can do and process and get back to you.
Okay, well, start working with some of those wake-up sheets. And as questions arouse, which invariably they will, our whole reason for being here 2 hours a day is to give you support with it. So glad to have the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, delighted and honored. Blessings.
Blessings to you. My goodness, thank you.
All right. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. All right, Michelle, young lady, how are you?
I'm good. I apologize. I mishandled my phone and somebody in the office with me. I'm doing well. We've got another person with a hand up. If you want to.
Well, let's say hello. Let's go for it.
Hello,
Absolutely.
caller 207. You're here.
Hey, Captain.
207. Give us a name. Where are you calling from?
I'm Shelly.
What's happening, Captain?
Hi,
hey
Captain.
there, young man.
How's it going?
Hey, we're rocking. How about you, Shelly?
I'm fabulous.
How are
hey,
things up in Cincinnati?
Oh, they're fabulous. Hey, you didn't mention the app to the lady.
Oh, that's true, you know. Thank you for bringing that up. My brain just wasn't there. But, yeah, you can also take your phone and go to your app store, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, and type in the words Heartland, Aramaic, forgiveness, And don't be concerned with the spelling of the word Aramaic. If you get the word AR typed in, it'll automatically come up. And there's a free app that the worksheet, there's actually a simple form of the worksheet there. There's the 7-step one that I talked about. And there's also a kids game, which is a whole different way of approaching the forgiveness process. The same tools. It's like a kids worksheet in a game format called the Drag-On Klingon game. So thank you for rattling those brain cells for me, Shelley.
Yes, and you haven't mentioned the intensive going on this month either.
Well, we started right into a conversation, but I'll be mentioning that sometime during the whole conversation. I'm delighted that you're going to come and join us for the Food, Fun, Forgiveness, and Work program. In fact, I'm extra delighted that you're going to come a little early to just kind of help us to get things set up for people arriving and getting the property all back set up and in shape. So it's awesome.
I'm excited. That's all I wanted to say. You didn't tell her about that.
Okay. Well, thank you for the reminder, sir. It's good to hear your voice.
You're welcome. Good to hear you.
All right. Blessings. All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. You too.
Okay. Nothing like a little help from our friends.
So, Michael, we've got area code 413. Who do we have, and where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. This is Linda calling from Heartland.
Well, hey, young lady, welcome.
I just tapped into something, and I just am calling for some support. I was sitting here doing worksheets while I was listening, and before that, let me take a breath.
Yeah, just take a breath, and we're here holding the space as you take that breath and take care of yourself.
Well,
Take your time. We're with you.
Okay. Okay. So, my son, our son, has been going through some similar stuff that I've been going through for the last 30 years. So I can see the generational thing
right.
just so close. And he actually I introduced him to the app about a month or so ago, and some other thing, and some alternative support from somebody I was seeing in town, and he was doing really well. And some of this stuff surfaced after he decided that he didn't want to drink alcohol anymore or smoke, so he quit both of those habits, something that I did about 35 years ago.
That opens things up. That opens things up big time.
Yeah, so he called for support and said, "This is I was feeling really good for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden I have so much anxiety." And his wife passed away about 4 years ago, and that was pretty intense for everyone, especially him, obviously.
Right.
And some of the things seem to be coming up around that now. But anyway, so he just called a little while ago, and he's a little bit obsessed about something in his body, and even though he's gotten a clean bill of health, just the same stuff that I've been going through. So I talked to him and offered him some support, and suggested the worksheets and other things like breathing, putting just present himself. What I do that helps me is to put my hand on my heart and take a breath, and they're going off in my mind just to see what's going on. So anyway, so we ended the call, and I did some worksheets. And on my anxiety coming up around his anxiety. And then this last one I just did, my goal is I want to be able to make him better. And all kinds of sadness came up around that.
Ooh, I hear you on that.
A lot of energy. So
I've been actually processing some of that same issue myself from the other end of it recently. When I was a kid, they called my father the day of my birth and told him that if he wanted to see me live, you better get down there because I wasn't going to make it through the night. and I was in and out of hospitals and oxygen tents and almost died 4 or 5 times the first couple of years of my life. And that's sort of been coming up for me as just, oh my God, what I put my parents through, what it must, and that's particularly been happening with Aria Rain being here. And thank God her being so healthy and so vital and so happy. And just the delight of being with her, and then realizing how not delightful it must have been for my parents with as sick as I was. So I hear you on that one from the other end. And what parents go through can be pretty intense, and it sounds like you're opening that up to process through.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part of me that feels responsible, and being on that too.
So we breathe with you.
So I don't know where to get with that. Other words, just to let the feelings come up and,
Well, if you look at the overall issue that you're thinking about with your son, what was your goal? I mean, for me, if it were me in that circumstance and having the conversation you are, I'd be thinking in terms of if only I'd been a better parent or the perfect parent.
Yeah, he might not have caught it from me. He might not have picked up on it. He was the youngest, so he was the
Okay.
And also not being able to help him. I think that's where the energy came up of sadness around it. Is I can't fix it for him.
Yeah. So that looks like I cancel my need to be all powerful.
I can't be. Yeah. That's awesome.
So was that your voice that said that's awesome? Or is there another voice in there? It sounded different.
That was my voice. I thought it sounded like a scholar or somebody. I don't know. I didn't say awesome, but that's cancel my goal. Yeah, because there's sadness around there, like I'm supposed to be able to. And it's painful to see. I was about to say it's painful to see him go through what I have been, feeling.
So what's the truth about that? Now, knowing what you know about the work, knowing what you know about the work, you know that to watch him go through it is painful is denial, right? You realize that.
Yeah. He's bringing up that situation is bringing up, I think, helplessness in me.
Yeah. So that may be one of those. Yeah. So that might be one of those. Well, here's what you can do, though. Instead of standing in helplessness and resonating with his helplessness, you can forgive and heal your helplessness. Then you're a space of support for him healing his helplessness and being empowered. And you both end up being empowered as a result of it. By you being responsible as mom and clearing out that helplessness and standing clear in your power as love, you open a space for him not to have to wait for 20 years to do it.
That's right.
So that's empowerment. There's the breath we want. There it is. That's the one that moves the energy. Perfect.
Thank you. I think I'm a little bit caught in trying to figure it out too, and I just
that one's
let go, and
that's one of those old pseudo solutions that we just need to let go of. I will never be able to figure any of it out. When you start to think of all the energetic dynamics, 1,000 generations of genes, and just 2 people involved in interaction, who's going to figure out what's happening there? Nobody's ever going to do that. But I can forgive it. I can collapse whatever the projection is from the surface mind, reach into the depth of the pain that I hold, process through that pain, and free myself of it. And then, who needs to figure it out?
Right.
So that's a big one. Right on track, young lady. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. My mind, I feel kind of foggy at the moment. Well, that's.
Okay, so you're in a healing crisis now. So the energy's moving. That's fabulous.
Okay.
Yay.
Yeah, help us.
Yeah, so I invite you to just be with that now. And, you got a whole community of people from all over the globe. We've probably got Bob down there in Australia and Peter in, excuse me, I knocked my headset off. Peter in Sweden and people all over the country, all over the globe, just holding the space for you. As you breathe and let yourself move through that healing process that brings up confusion.
Thank you, Michael.
Honored and delighted. Glad to be on the team. And certainly delighted that you're on our team.
Yes, we are too. It's been a real gift to be here, for sure. I think it's the best thing I've ever done for myself. Coming here, really, the best gift I've ever given myself. I'm very grateful to you, and Jeanie. Thank you.
Well, it's fabulous that both of you are there because it's an awesome gift to Heartland. The amount that you guys have done and gotten ready, I mean, for me, it's going to be so much easier getting back to Heartland with everything that you guys have done this winter. It's just, I'm beyond my limit of appreciation for it.
Oh.
So thank you both.
You're so
thank
welcome.
You both.
It's been a real privilege for both of us. It's been great for both of us, and it's been wonderful. We cannot believe that you're coming back in a few weeks. The time just flies. But thank you.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure exactly what day I'm leaving, but I'm probably going to hit the road here somewhere around the 15th, 16th, and make a trip to St. Louis and say hi to my daughter and granddaughter and her husband. And then my son, Michael J., just bought a new house, so we're going to run over and see his new house. And last night I was talking to him, and he was joking about, oh, thanks, Dad, you're going to come after all the work is done. It's like, oh, good, yes, I am. and then I'll be down to Heartland. So they bought a house, and they're doing a bunch of renovations before they move in. They've got about 2 weeks. So I talked to him last night about 9 o'clock. He's like, well, I quit early tonight, Dad. My back's sore. And I've been scraping popcorn ceilings and have dust in my nose. So he was ready to quit. But I lamented, gee, son, I'm sorry I can't be there to help you. But I'll be there when you're finished. Anyway.
Great. Well, right. Enjoy that if I don't talk to you before then. And thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it.
Honored.
Have a blessed rest of the day.
All right. In the plan. Thank you. Bless you.
Bye.
All right. Well, Michelle, what's happening?
You've got 10 minutes, and if you had an intro, you could use it. We've got nobody with a hand up right now. And
I didn't even get to ask you how you're doing. We just got right into it. So how are you doing? What's happening in your world?
I've got some new legal stuff unfolding, and I am applying tools, and it's very interesting to me how calm I am in terms of what's being presented to me, because given my last few years with major health crisis and major relationship upset and major financial, turmoil, I think about what I'm attached to, and, the next thing in the list of being threatened is my attachment to my profession. And so I've tried these other challenges, and now I'm like, okay, I don't have anything left. There's nothing to take anymore. I mean, I've surrendered. And so it's just sort of a different place, like where I feel safe and protected because there's nothing more, at a certain point, there's nothing more you can take from me. I'm whole and complete. I'm not giving a lot of details because it's still kind of unfolding, but
sure, I understand.
I understand
that, but I hear you. So
got a challenge.
So what I'm
hearing,
yeah. Well, what I'm hearing you saying is though, but what I've done is I've done my work and I don't have all this upset around it. Yeah, I've got this to handle, but I don't have to be in pain and trauma.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
They're because it's so interesting because I'm watching the reactions around me. And the choices they're making are clearly driven out of fear. And even though I got some legal advice exactly opposite of what they're suggesting, there's more calmness in terms of staying my course because it's so easy to see how their choices are by fear. So,
right. Well, you've been doing your work. And maybe that's the place to invite them to step up and do their work.
The opportunity presents itself right now. Like I said, it's in the middle of unfolding. But I really was trying to, and I wanted a minute to share this the other day because I have clients doing worksheets regularly in between sessions, and then oftentimes they bring it there to me. And so one thing I know I'm good at is helping people through that worksheet. And I've so many thousands that I just can see things faster. And so then I just give some feedback, which is like really feels like saying, okay, Michelle, what color's on a stoplight? Red, yellow, green. Yeah, that's it. Okay. It feels so easy. But people's mouths are hanging open like they never heard of the most profound insight. And how did I figure that out in, one breath and blah, blah, blah. And it isn't. It's just knowing the principles, knowing the tools, and then being able to practice them so you're applying them to novel situations. It just becomes really a simple process, at least for other people, right? Because I'm not attached.
Right.
And I really got present in this like deep level of gratitude about how superior really of a clinician I am than 6 years ago when I didn't have this, and how powerful that like what I know, and then being reliant on Holy Spirit and calling her into the room, coupled with the people who resonate, who want to find the work, just makes this like totally intense, very deep, very healing, powerful experience that I don't think happens in most therapy rooms day to day. Is my guess. And so I was just feeling so grateful for that opportunity, like that, like what seems so easy to me, like is so meaningful to these people, and they're so happy about it, and so like they're moving forward. They're moving forward.
I hear you loud and clear. I sent a picture to Tim this morning, and you remember when Rory called in, and for anybody who maybe wasn't listening, there's a young lady whose mom introduced her to the work about 3 years ago. She's been doing worksheets. She's in 5th grade. She's 11 years of age, and she decided she was going to do a calming strategies forgiveness project for school. And so she wrote to Jeanie and I and asked if we'd mentor her, which we delightfully agreed to. And she called to the show a couple of weeks ago. If you look back through the archives, I'm not sure what date it was, but she called in and she had a worksheet all prepared to do. And we went through the whole process. And then we got a picture of her, and it was her presenting to the class. It's just such a sweet picture. If you look on my Facebook page, you'll see it. But I sent it to Tim this morning because she'd done a presentation board for the classroom. So she's up in front of the class with this really beautiful looking board that's, maybe 4 feet by 4 feet. And on it is a picture of Jeanie and I, and there's a picture of Tim. So I sent that to Tim. And the comment I made to Tim was, with almost 50 years of doing this work, If this young lady at 11 years of age presenting forgiveness to her 5th grade class and saying in a very powerful, clear voice, I'm going to take forgiveness and compassion and healing to the planet, if that's the only result we'd ever produce in doing this work, it's all been worthwhile. So I hear you loud and clear, and I understand exactly what you're saying, Michelle, and I'm with you, bro. It's pretty awesome, isn't it?
It is. I heard a little bit of Rory that day you're speaking on, and her voice is very sweet, and I was picturing her doing this work as an adult, and I agree that she's going to be powerful. And I mean, 5 years of doing work, it really it's really impressive when I look where I started, given that I had done 15, 20 years of work in other modalities before then, between Course in Miracles
Right.
and Landmark Education and therapy and my own process and da-da-da. And I think maybe the first time I ever heard this, actually, it was from Magda. It's like one of the things like you remember at the beginning and then you never forget. And she said, similar to me, Michelle, I've looked for tools, I've done this seminar, this class, this workshop, this book, this, presentation, on and on and on. And she's like, when I found the forgiveness tool, my search ended because I realized I could never exhaust this tool. And, that sounded hopeful at the time that, for 6 months in that she said that to me. But then over time, when I realized that's exactly true, and that I haven't been able to exhaust it, and that one of my, this happened, I think, that when you were in Michigan last time around, is I went to go look for a blank worksheet, and I couldn't find any, and I knew I had this one binder from an old Laws of Living class. I'm like, I had a section on worksheets. I bet I have a blank one there. And I go to pull out the binder from 3 years previous and turn to the section with the blank worksheets, only to find out a filled-in worksheet that was at the same topic I was about to do a worksheet on. Same person, details of the story were different, same upset,
cool.
Same thing. It was great.
There's a book about that. I think it's called Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
But the difference is there had been, maybe 1 or 2 worksheets in between the 3 years that all happened, or at least 10 intensives. But that, the level of upset was not a 9, it was a 2, and the story about it was so easy to vaporize. It was laughable. I didn't even write it. I just read the old worksheet and it was over.
Instant reslice, eh?
So that's
cool.
my contribution. I was really getting in touch this week with how much gratitude, like how lucky I feel to be able to give back, like, and be so effective in the therapy room. It's just like, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, very cool. We'll just take a minute and say thank you for that and mention that as Shelley had prompted me to say, we have a 16-day food, fun, and forgiveness happening. People will arrive on the 30th of May. We'll start on the 1st, actually, and go through June 16th. Then we're doing a 3-day personal code evaluation training for people who have done teacher training or are going to do teacher training or have done Laws of Living and want to learn that tool. And then we have a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again, a 9-day teacher training. We put those together and they collapse one day, so it becomes a 17-day overall. The 9-day Why workshop is a prerequisite to the teacher training. So if you want to do teacher training, then you can do the 9-day Why all in one. Or if you've done it in the past and it's time to review the 9-day Why and then go into teacher training, there are lots of options. If you go to our website, whyagain.org, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says flyers. It'll tell you all about it. Drop Jeanie a note, Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org. Let her know what you want to do. Give us a phone number. I'll make sure to be in touch. We'll get you registered. In the meantime, blessings. Have the best year of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. Bye-bye.